It's all about the spooky books this month. Hello my literateurs! It is so good to be back. Welcome to the end of the month book review for September of 2017. I read so many books. Okay, I probably don't read nearly as much as other booktubers, but I am making a concerted effort to do so between homeschooling my kids, writing my next book, or like 2 books actually that hopefully will come out this year, and then, you know, projects for my clients. So I've squeezed some books in there, and hopefully I'll be able to do more this month. So I've got a long list for my TBR. So let's get started on what I read last month, what I didn't read, and then we'll move into the spooky books, okay? So I did manage to finish Nevernight. It was good. It was really good. It was action-packed. It had a full storyline. I mean, I could follow the character arc, although she didn't change too much. I think that he's waiting to do, as far as the series is concerned, to do that entire character arc. So, for those who don't remember or didn't see my last video, Nevernight was a story of a young woman, an orphan, who becomes an assassin, and her goal is to bring down an empire much like the Roman Empire of our history. So this is an incredible fantasy world. He's done a really good job of creating some beautiful imagery as far as his world is concerned, the cities. I felt that the magic was tacked on. It didn't seem like it was integrated much. I felt that the main protagonist was fairly distant. I mean, it wasn't like she was there, we were in her head, we were seeing things from her perspective, but it was like he was playing with this unreliable narrator, and I didn't feel like he did it well. That being said, the book itself isn't that bad. There is some sex scenes for those who do not prefer to read books with adult situations. I believe this is an adult book, even though the protagonist is I think she's 16 or 17 years old. So she is a teenager. I wouldn't give it to my 17-year-old son. Okay, so that, take it or leave it, but that's my personal opinion. Other than that, you know, I don't think I will read the second one, and I'm going to tell you why. The author did a fabulous job of pulling the whole story together and answering almost all his story questions by the end of the book. And then she gets a new question that was totally unrelated, weird. It felt very tacked on to me. I may read it a second time just to see. I gave it back to the library because it was a library book, so I'd have to get back up. If I gave it a 5-star rating, I'd probably give it a 3, maybe to 3.5. So while the pacing was good, the action was good, the storytelling was fine, there was just some really big issues that I felt needed to be fixed, and that's probably a personal opinion. Well, it's all a personal opinion, isn't it? You may like it. I just thought it was meh. It was okay. It was a good book. It wasn't a great book. Okay, so I did read that. Let's see, what else did I read? I finished. Okay, so I did finish The Bloody Chamber. And I stand by my review from last time. It is a retelling of fairy tales that you and I are very familiar with a more modern twist, focused on female independence and sexuality. So they're okay. I think the reason it's okay is because she started this kind of idea. The author is Angela Carter. She's kind of the grandmother of retelling of the fairy tales, and so I think we're so used to the retelling of fairy tales now that this book, while it's wonderful, and it's, you know, the stories are really well written, really great retellings, they're not quite as good as current novels are, and I think part of it is that they are fairy tales. They're very short, so think it's a compilation of short stories, much like a Grimm's fairy tale book would be. So I'm more used to bigger novels that are set within one particular story and delving more into the storyline and developing characters. So you kind of get, if you like short stories, and if you're okay with female sexuality and the idea of female independence, then in female independence, not as in that's a bad thing, by the way. But if that's your thing, then this would probably be a good read for you. Okay, I'd give it a 4 stars out of 5 if I had to. So set that aside. I finished Deconstructing Penguins. I don't remember if I included this from last month. I think I did. I finished it. I love this book. It's such a great read. The authors are Lawrence and Nancy Goldstone. And the full title is Deconstructing Penguins, Parents, Kids, and the Bond of Reading. And basically what they do is teach you, the reader, how to analyze a book. And they do it in such simple terms, and they make the process really easy, and they give lots and lots of examples, and they show you how to do it. And so you can help your children learn how to analyze a book, and it's fabulous. And as a homeschooling mom, this is a great book. I would recommend this thing to all homeschoolers, especially if you're kind of light on understanding the analyzation of books. So lots of good things in here. Okay, let's see. What else did I do? Oh, okay, well, I'll tell you what. There's 2 books I didn't finish. Till We Have Faces and The Story of Western Science. Now, I think with The Story of Western Science, I'm going to finish it. I promise. I'll finish it. I think, though, that Susanne Bauer said, had written earlier in the book that it's not something you can read or you have to read from front to back. If you're interested in a particular part of science, a particular part of history, then read that part. So you can jump around. But I'm reading from the front to the back. It's not a bad book. It's just I was more caught up in reading stories this month. So I will finish it. And then C.S. Lewis, Till We Have Faces, Myth Retold. So this is Cupid and Psyche. I just haven't had a chance, so it might be after my next book that I'm reading. So, okay, so I have like a ton of, I have a stack of books. I mean, it's ridiculous how many books I have over here, and they're all from the library, by the way. So I love my library. All right, so the first one is Death by His Grace. Now, this is not, I mean, it's a mystery. It's kind of a cozy mystery, I guess. It's more of a murder mystery, I would say. It's by Kwei, Quartey. I don't know how to pronounce that. But it actually takes place in Ghana, in Africa. And that, in and of itself, is awesome. I mean, I don't read very many books set outside the United States. So I was pretty excited to find this. Apparently, this is one in a series, so I'm going to read it. I normally don't like to read series in the middle. I prefer to go to the first book and read my way through. But this actually looks like I don't have to do that. So it may be one of those series where all the books are standalone. So we'll see. But I have a really bad habit of flipping to the middle and reading. So I read a chapter and it was fabulous. And you keep wondering what's going to happen to this person, because you know she's going to die. It says so on the inner flap. But you have some of the story from her perspective. So, and it's sad. It takes a lot of, I'll read the back or inside flap. So, a couple so it's like a high society couple. They can't conceive. The wife is accused of witchcraft, and they end up in a divorce. And she refuses to leave their house, I think, and she ends up murdered. The problem is that the detective in the book is married to this dead woman's cousin, and to keep the peace in the family and to help his wife because she's grieving, he goes to find the murderer. And so it looks at culture and religion and grief, and it has a really great setting. And so I'm actually really looking forward to this, and I may take it with me this weekend when I go out of town. So, all right, so Death by His Grace. Awesome. Real Artists Don't Starve. I try to read a nonfiction book a month. Sometimes I don't manage it, but this one's by Jeff Goins. I learned that recently. I was saying his name wrong the whole time. I was saying Goins, and it's not. It's Goins, rhymes with coins. But Jeff Goins is a pretty good writer, and anything that helps me figure out how to write creatively or be creative, you know, helps my business and helps me write. So I was going to give this a shot. It has pretty good reviews on Amazon. So another one I got was Space Dumplins. This is a, so first off, I don't read a lot of graphic novels. This one came pretty well recommended from another booktuber. And if you can see, is that not great? That is great. Great work. I'm just looking through it, and it's just so beautifully drawn that it's hard to look away from. If you like this style of comic, then this would probably be a good book. It's actually a children's book. So my kids read it, and it's about a little girl whose parents go missing, and she goes to find them, but of course they live out in outer space. So and this is all her adventures to go find her mom and dad. Okay, so last month I read Queen of the Tearling, and so it was so good. Oh, it was so good. I really liked it. There was a few spots that gave me troubles, but it was really good. I got Invasion of the Tearling, so I need to read it. I got it like 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't taken a look at it. I like doing audiobooks every once in a while. I tried listening to it, and I just couldn't do it. I think it was the narrator. So Invasion of the Tearling is the second book. I think there's 3 books, but this is the second book, as she kind of goes forward and trying to figure out how to handle the imminent war that is coming, the imminent war that's coming between her and the neighboring country. Okay, so the last book on my, sorry, I have to put it away. The last book on my TBR list, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it before I have to hand it back to the library, but it's called Illumanae. I guess this is all over book 2 right now. And, okay, so here's the deal. I have lots of pen pals around the world. I write all the time. I love writing letters. I love receiving letters. So any book that uses correspondence to tell a story, I'm going to probably enjoy. So that being said, this thing is filled with all sorts of letters and classified stuff. So you get things like this, right? So it's probably backwards for you. But it's told through text messages and letters and all sorts of stuff. So it's not your average read, basically. And it looks like it's the first in a series. So the authors are Amie Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. So I need to get on with this one as well. So that leads me to the spooky stories for the month. I don't like horror. I mean, I straight up don't like horror. Don't like horror films. I'm not a big fan of horror books. And I had to really think to myself, why is that? And I think I don't like creepy stories. Okay, so there's a difference between violence and creepy. And I'm okay with suspense. I love suspense. I mean, I read murder mysteries, right? But I think a lot of horror stories rely on a lot of violence to tell the story. And so I prefer not to read that kind, right? So that being said, I had wondered if there was a subgenre, because I have this book. It's called This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. And I just started it. And he's actually a Christian horror writer. Yeah, I know. It seems like an oxymoron, but it's not. So I actually looked it up, and apparently there is a subgenre of horror called religious horror. And it actually focuses on the struggle between good and evil. And it is less bloody. It's not less violent, but it's less bloody with a lot less gratuitous blood and violence. And it tends to focus on the themes of redemption and sacrifice, love, all the things you might find in the Bible. It would include supernatural things like demons and angels, prophets, things like that. So in that case, if that's what that genre is, now I'm cool with that, right? I'm okay with that. So a friend gave this to me. Her name is Shalise, and she gave this to me so I could read it. And I think it's actually on my son's reading list, believe it or not. So it is about a small town. They suddenly find themselves fighting a hideous new age plot to subjugate the town people and eventually the entire human race. It says, not since the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis has there been a novel with as much insight into spiritual warfare and the necessity of prayer. The first couple of chapters are always the setup. So, and it's okay. I've read better written books, but I think I'm reading this more for the content than I am for the writing style. I hope it doesn't stop me, because sometimes it does. So that's This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. Another book that was recommended is Through the Woods. It is by Emily Carroll. Interestingly enough, I guess these stories came out on the internet first, and then she kind of gathered them together. They're scary stories is what they are. And they're all told, it's a graphic novel, so it's comics basically. And it's all told through that. I read one and it was kind of spooky, which I'm okay with. Spooky's okay, creepy not. So I was told not to read this in the dark. And I'm okay with that. I don't read scary things in the dark. I don't watch scary movies in the dark. So one that I did finish yesterday was Monstress. Gosh, look at that. Isn't that not the most beautiful artwork you've ever seen? It's truly, truly beautiful. The whole book is just so well drawn. The amount of detail that the artist put into it. So Monstress is written by Marjorie Liu and drawn by Sana Takeda, I think is her name. But it is about the young woman on the front who has a otherworldly creature living inside her, and she needs to know why. So this is the story of her figuring out what's going on, because her mother has passed away and never told her all of everything that was going on. So the young woman was part of this expedition that went out into the desert, and her mom died. And so it picks up later, and she's being sold as a slave, and you find out why later. So there is a little bit of nudity in it. It is quite violent. Not gratuitously so, but the woman is a soldier, and she has a monster living inside her that likes to come out and eat people. So you gotta take that for what it is. The storytelling is quite good. Pacing is great. I do have the second I have the second volume, which I already read. Again, really good. The second one was just as good as the first, if not better. I did let my 17-year-old read it. I think he's mature enough to read this. So that's Monstress by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. Again, another graphic novel. There are a few books that I don't have on hand, but I've heard that are pretty good. One is Queen of Wands by John Ringo. Now, this is not necessarily like a horror book. I did read Princess of Wands by him, and I found it was a little weird because it felt like it switched gears in the middle of the story. But in the end, it was a fairly good book. So basically, this is a soccer mom who has serious, deep faith in God. And it turns out that because of that, she becomes like this supernatural ninja person who joins an organization of other religious people, not necessarily of her same faith, who go out and destroy demons everywhere. So think Buffy, but more Christian. Just a caveat, this particular series focuses on many paths to God. That is not my position. So if you want to read it, go ahead, but just be aware that it's not, I wouldn't call it true Christianity. He's just calling it Christian. The second one is Field of Blood by Erik. The take on vampires as a result of Judas hanging himself. It looks good, but I don't know anything more about it. It actually has pretty good reviews on Amazon. So And the last one is a Ted Dekker. Now, Ted Dekker does write horror. And I don't know if he's a Christian, but some of it includes Christian themes. So I was recommended to read 3. And that's TR, the number 3, E. So, and it's about this young man who leads a virtuous life. He gets a phone call and this person says, if you don't tell me your sins, I'm going to kill someone. And he's like, well, what did I do? And so he doesn't tell him, and a person dies. And so this murderer keeps calling him and wanting him to confess. So he's got to figure out what he did to upset this person. So it's like it's fairly interesting. So I don't think this is a supernatural kind of book. I think it's just a straight up whodunit murder kind of thing with scary overtones. So the last book I want to share with you is the original folk and fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, translated and edited by Jack Zipes. Apparently, this is a direct translation from, I want to say, the German of the original tales before they got mutilated in the 1800s and rewritten. I'm actually really excited to read this, and because I can pick up themes and I can pick up story ideas from all sorts of places, and including fairy tales. And I don't know if they have my favorite one in here, which is East of the Sun, West of the Moon. That's the one I like the most. So we'll see. Okay, so that is it for me. If you are on the internet at any time, check me out at pickeyandpen.com. You can always follow me on Facebook at author April Heyman, or follow me on Instagram at april.heyman. Until later, until next month, my literateurs, bye.